All right, welcome back to MazzaMedia. I am live. I am Mark, and this is YouTube. It's late night. It's a Wednesday night, and I just got done spending the last 20 minutes of my life agonizing over the Boston Celtics and another disgraceful loss by that team. This is a downright embarrassment at this point. The Boston Celtics have just literally lost 2 games in a row that they actually had won both times. In game one, we're going to start off with the Celtics rant tonight. I was going to talk about the Karen Reed case to kick off this show. I was going to come on this show. The Celtics won game 2, amazing. But now I'm in a situation where it's basically the Celtics have lost twice in a row to a team that they have effectively beaten 2 times in a row. Only the Celtics have shot themselves out of both games, which is absolutely madness at this particular point in time. I cannot believe what I'm seeing. I cannot believe what is going on. This is absolute madness. This is absolute insanity, and I just can't believe it. 2 games in a row. I mean, they missed 12 shots in a row. I think they got up to like 14 missed shots in a row. They were only getting free throws, and the only basket they got in the last 6 minutes from the field was Jason Tatum coming off a high screen and driving it in for a 2-hand jam. And then once Tatum lost his left-handed dribble, it was all over. I mean, the Knicks are not in any way, shape, or form outplaying the Boston Celtics in any one of these games. The Celtics are just quite simply missing wide open shots every single game. That is exactly what is happening right now, and that's exactly what appears to be the case. And even the other night, they missed what 30 something threes or whatever it was. It was absolutely insanity, absolutely crazy, absolutely outrageous, and it's just something that I cannot believe right now, because you have a Celtics team that's a very strong team. I mean, they have not had any real bad shooting issues all season. They've been a very dominant team, and the Knicks again are just what I would call a traditional playoff team. They're pretty solid. They got some good players. They got Jalen Brunson. They got Karl Anthony Towns. They got a few other people, Mikal Bridges, all good players. They're a good team, but the Celtics have gone up 20 on this team 2 games in a row and lost both times because they went cold from the field 2 games in a row. And literally, if they had just made one of those threes tonight, they win the game. And this is just an outrage at this particular point. It's an absolutely disgraceful. And Bias Bev is right. Nobody saw the Pacers going up 2-0 on the Cavs, and the Cavs and Celtics, who dominated the league, most importantly, the Eastern Conference all year long. They were the number 1 and the number 2 seeds, and they go up. Both teams go out there and both lose by a point 2 nights in a row. This is just absolute insanity. It's just driving me nuts, because to complain, if I may for a moment, if I haven't been already, this is taking up a lot of time in my life. There's other things I could have done tonight. I have other things. I skipped martial arts tonight because I wanted to watch the Celtics play. I could have gone to martial arts tonight. Could have gone to that. Decided to go for a 4-mile walk after work and before the game. And then I got to come back and watch the game and watch the Celtics totally destroy the Knicks most of the game. In the third quarter and for most of the early parts of the fourth, there was really no issue at all. And then all of a sudden, the Celtics just decided, you know what? Yeah, let's just not make shots anymore. We might be the best shooting team in the league, or one of the best shooting teams in the league, but let's just go cold and go down 2-0 to the Knicks. Now we have to go into Madison Square Garden. But don't underestimate the Knicks' ability to choke, because what will happen is the Knicks will probably choke this series away anyways, and the Celtics will end up winning 7. So I'm not even worried about the Celtics losing this series yet, as crazy as that may sound, because never underestimate the Knicks' ability to blow a series like this away and absolutely fumble it. So I won't be shocked if we're sitting here like in a week or two. My next complaint, my final complaint before I really start the show here, is the Karen Reed trial in the Boston Celtics playoffs, going neck and neck once again. This is just two things that consume my life after work. And I got to sit here and I got to keep up with the Celtics. I got to keep up with the Karen Reed trial. I use my walks after work to catch up. Sometimes my lunch break, if I have it some time during lunch, I might catch up on the trial, watch it on TV or whatnot. But, work hours, it's just busy. I'm busy all the time. I got things I got to do, deadlines, I got all that good stuff. But yeah, the Celtics losing again, wasting another evening, wasting their own time out there tonight. This is not a Celtics team with any significant weaknesses other than missing shots, which is absolutely crazy at this point. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see what ends up happening. But beyond that, yes, I am back. I am back tonight, late night, and hopefully people realize I'm on right now. I'm not used to doing less than maybe 300 or 400 viewers, but that's okay. Thank you all for being here, and I do greatly appreciate everyone that is tuning in right now to this program. We're going to talk quite a bit about what's going on. And it's, first of all, it's great to be back. I missed you guys. Thank you guys so much for just pouring out nothing but love, appreciation, and support for me in my time away. And about 3 weeks before I decided I was going to come back, I should be 3 weeks before I came back. Before I came back, I decided it off and on for 3 weeks if I was going to actually come back and what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it and all that. But the Karen Reed world is definitely a lot more enhanced than it has been a year ago. There's a lot more YouTubers. There's a lot more new lawyers that are out there running their shows now. I see a lot more programming out there now. And there's just a lot more content to consume, a lot more channels to watch. There's a lot more people that are aware of this, that have big followings on X, on social media, on TikTok. It's absolutely a big thing. And even the media, I think, is picking up this even more than they did a year ago. It's a bigger, badder sequel this time around. And I would say it's different. It feels different. I know Aiden talked a little bit about that last night on his program about just the innate differences compared to last year. And one of the biggest differences is really just the feeling around the courthouse. And if anybody had watched a lot of Tommy CPU's channel last year, that was a defining channel for really showing everybody what it was like outside the court, showing Karen walk into court every day, showing Karen leaving, coming out for lunch, going back in after lunch, the morning crowds, everything that went on there. And it was a whole different environment last year. It was honestly, I would say, euphoric last year in terms of just the energy outside the courthouse. And what happened last year was that the Karen Reed supporters just absolutely engulfed that little grassy rectangular area outside the church and basically got an overhead tent. And there were hundreds, of people out there. I had an opportunity to visit a few times as well. And it was just incredible to watch. And once a mistrial was declared, as we were starting to come up on the hearings for the retrial, I actually said, gee, I wonder, if not project, if this judge is going to expand that buffer zone and get us out of that nice little comfort zone that we established for ourselves. And of course, the lead prosecutor made sure to contend that this would be something that needed to be pushed back even further. And sure enough, they went ahead and they did that this year. They expanded that buffer zone. And very soon, we saw Tom CPU almost immediately confronted by the state police and told to basically clear out. He had since filed a legal complaint, I believe, against the state police. I'm not sure where that's at right now, but that was something that had happened. And then you had, I forget his name now, Bayo. He was actually arrested the first day of the trial. They took him. Basically, he was outside, and I think they thought he was loitering or something with his phone or camera or whatever, and they ended up cuffing him up, shackling him up, and throwing him in the paddy wagon, and basically he was in jail till the next morning, which was absolutely insane. And then Boston Brandy, I learned over the weekend, had said peekaboo to the lead prosecutor when he was heading into court one morning, and she was just standing on the sidewalk and playfully saying peekaboo, and the lead prosecutor looked right back at her and laughed, and then they basically, I guess they served her with something, and I guess the cert team is going to be getting some kind of paper out to her, and the rumor was another woman as well was going to be hit with some papers on that. And again, all she said was peekaboo. And I saw her post the video online. I've watched the video online, and it's really nothing of any merit. But one thing that seems to be very evident at this point is that there's certainly a target on anybody's back that is free Karen Read. And once they enter that buffer zone, the state police really have no reservations about taking liberty of enforcing it. And then that was very evident from day one of the trial. Anybody watched it live or like myself watched footage, in the evening time, was able to see that there's a certain level of enforcement going on out there. And these state police, I think it was Dina that said, she disagrees with Sergeant Hardman from the state police and the way he's enforcing this whole thing and the way he's going about it, the way they're just really vehemently going after Karen Read supporters, and they can't go after anti-Karen Read people because they actually don't show up, to be honest. Every day we got to hear about how the free Karen Read numbers are dwindling and there's not many Karen Read supporters out there. Well, you look at the comparative. I mean, there were no blue shirts out there last year during the trial. They weren't there till the summer. And then now, looking at this trial, they're the ones saying, oh, look, there's no Karen Read supporters out there. And, there's no anti-Karen Read supporters. There's no people that are so-called blue shirts that were no-shows during the last trial. And it's just outrageous to me that so many people who are anti-Karen Read are pointing to the fact that they say, for example, that Karen Read supporters are paid off to be out there. That's what they've said for a few weeks now. Karen Read supporters are paid to be there. They're paid off. But then at the same time, these very same people are also posting Karen Read supporter numbers are dwindling. It's just, how can you report both things is my contention. And ultimately you have, like I said, I don't know why. I can't speak for all the supporters of Karen Read as to why. I know more people are showing up than the pictures are showing in the early morning. I guess a lot of those pictures are taken at like 7 o'clock, 7:30 before the buffer zone goes into effect. And those people are like the early crowd. And then more people show up throughout the day. That's what I've been told. And thank you so much to Goodmans. I appreciate that. $2. The Goodmans, glad to see you back. Thank you. Glad to see you back in the comments. And I appreciate getting a super chat from you. Thank you so much. $2. But yeah, anytime I say $2, I got to say $2. But yeah, it's a different scenario out there. I think that I think that, I hate to use the word fun and exciting, but I think there was a level of fun and excitement that Karen Read supporters made out of being outside the courthouse last year. And really the parade or the party was really crashed by the new buffer zone ruling, which attorney Mark Randazza is once again for the second year in a row currently fighting and currently taking on and currently up against in court. And it's too bad. It's too bad it had to be this way. I think we had a great thing going on last year for those of us or those of you that were out there, many of them on a frequent basis. I get to visit a couple times, took days off from work, and got out there when I could last year. I think I took a few vacation days here and there just to be there last year, which was time well spent. But the buffer zone this year, like I said, if Karen Reed supporters are not showing up the way they showed up last year, it's not because of a lack of supporters. Truthfully, the Karen Reed Fund is over $931,000 right now. It's closing in on $1 million. Furthermore, the link is pinned to the top of your chat. If you're able to make a donation to Karen Reed's Defense Fund, please do so. Thank you so much. Any contribution that you can make to Karen Reed would be fantastic to help her in her fight. A lot of those funds, I've been informed, have already been used up and are being spent on flying out a lot of expert witnesses as well, such as Dr. Murray Russell, Dr. Wolf, Dr. Rentschler of ARCA. So, like I said, once again, it's a whole different situation out there. Diane G., good to see you as well. I know you've been following me for a long time. Thank you so much. Debbie Blair, I saw in the chat. Good to see you. Good to see everybody. But yes, it's a different situation out there this year. And if people are staying away just out of an abundance of caution, like I'm not gonna shame anybody. I'm not gonna be there and say, oh geez, everyone's a chicken if they don't go out there. If you want to go out there, go out there. If you don't want to go out there, don't go out there. If you want to wait till later in the trial or during jury deliberation, then do so. Just do whatever you feel is best. I think it's a little outrageous that the buffer zone is in the back of the registry of deeds. So you mean to tell me I wonder someone else couldn't just pull into the registry of deeds with a free Karen Reed shirt on? There's going to be a cop back there and be like, sorry, going to have to cite you. You're in the buffer zone. You're now entering the buffer zone. Which is just something else. It really is just something else. What's gone on with this whole thing? First and foremost, it's just outrageous that Janine, good to see you. Spot, good to see you. Annie Lee, good to see you. It's just outrageous that this trial's back. I remember a lot of people leading up to the second trial, the retrial a couple weeks ago. Everyone just the night before, 2 days before, was just like, is this really going to be back for another trial? Is this really happening again? Is this really going to go down? And it did. And it's now that it's back, we're looking at almost 3 weeks down already. Almost 3 weeks of this trial. In 2 more days, 3 weeks of this trial will already be down. Will already be over, which is crazy to think that this trial is already blazing by as fast as it is absolutely incredible. It seemed to go, I know, Larry, I know I had a nice little rant to kick off the show about the Boston Celtics tonight. And I don't feel like the Knicks beat us at all. I feel like the Celtics just missed shots. But the Young Jerks is back tonight. I haven't heard from Mike yet. I imagine Mike would tip me off at some point and invite me on the show tomorrow. I'll make it on the show if I can tomorrow night. We'll see what I can do. But I know Mark Betterow is on the Young Jerks tomorrow night. Do it. Just message Mike's page on X and just be like, Mike, make sure Mazza's on the thing. Send Mike Mazza. He'll message me. He'll message me at some point during the evening or something. I'm sure when I wake up in the morning, it will be there or something. We'll take a look. But no. Like I said, this buffer zone, like Upside Down says, it violates our constitutional rights. It does. The glare is in the house. LTL raid's ongoing too. Thank you guys from LTL. They're tuning in. Scott McGinnis is here. Hi, Scott. Glare. A lot of people starting to come on right now. LTL just got done. It looks like with Jessica Machado. Almost said Jessica Hyde, but Jessica Machado was on that show. She's a great reporter. She's doing great work. And once again, reporting from inside the courtroom and is going on LTL's show to just kind of inform us of what's going on inside the courtroom. And it's a different situation inside the courtroom as well. You have the podium where the defense and the prosecution are direct and cross-examining. That's a little further back this year. Unbelievable. Thank you guys for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Good to see everybody coming in here and participating. This is my comeback show. This is my comeback show right now. That's definitely my first time back hosting a show, and I think since mid-March, I think. So maybe before St. Patrick's Day at some point. But yeah, I felt like doing a show tonight. I was like, well, I saw Aiden wasn't doing a show. I saw Young Jerks wasn't doing a show. I saw my boy Will already did a show. Nurse Kim was doing a show already. Brian was doing a show. I said, all right, well, I'll do a show. I'm loving the energy in the chat right now, guys. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Thank you guys. May the 4th be with you all. Yes, May the 4th, May the 7th be with you as well. May the 7th. Why not? So hey, Iceman 2.0, what's going on? Some familiar faces. Yeah, it's been almost 2 months since I've done a show, if you guys can believe it. It's been almost 2 months. I hadn't even I planned on wrapping it up. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do a show anymore. It's over. Done. You guys can continue without me. Was kind of the Lafarios in next country. It was a tough night. Well, it's been a tough week to be a Celtics fan, especially when they've won 2 games in a row, but then lost those 2 games in a row as well. It's like they were up 20 in both games, but yet lose those games, which is crazy. But good to see you, Nan. Hope you're doing well. Late night show for me. Late night show for me tonight. I'm pushing myself a little bit. Didn't want to run out of energy and all of a sudden cancel the show, but I was like, well, I'll do a show tonight and get out there. And someone said, go New York, New York. I'd be pumped up if I'm a Knicks fan. The only thing I'd be worried about if I'm a Knicks fan is blowing the series lead, because the Knicks tend to blow leads a lot. So we'll see. Reality check. Can you tell us your thoughts on the defense's ability to discredit Jessica Machado's not just Machado, just Hyde. I got too many Jessicas here tonight. Just Machado. $2 from LTL Media. $2. Thank you. $2. Boston Brandy. I was just talking about you a few minutes ago about the little bit of injustice that they're pressing upon you in the buffer zone the other day. I'm sorry to hear you're going through that. Unfortunately, I guess you can't say peekaboo without it becoming a massive controversy inside the buffer zone, which is ridiculous. So I'm sorry to hear that, Brandy. You've been awesome. And sorry to hear they're doing that to you. And someone else. So my thoughts on just Machado. I think you mean Jennifer McCabe. Okay, let's get the right JMs here. So many JMs. Thank you. Someone said Jennifer McCabe. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I thought I'm always analytical here in a positive and a negative way towards everybody, regardless of who they are and what I think about them. But I will say this: Alan Jackson did what he needed to do. The Glare super chat from the Glare. I think we've got a super chat. How dare you? I love it. Thank you, Will. Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. So with Jen, I think that Alan Jackson got the answers out of her that he needed to get. I think he got what he needed her to say out before the jury. Now, I will tell you this, though, constructively about her. And I might get laughed at for this, and that's fine. I get it. How dare you? How dare you? I think we got a super chat. The how dare you part's my favorite part as well. Plus, it's got the Plevin's face on the damn thing. That guy, Grant, that guy is the master of playing the victim when he's clearly the aggravator and the agitator. Okay, he'll literally incite something, and then he'll be like, "Oh my goodness, I've been hit. I've been accosted. How dare you?" It's like, dude, stop. Okay, just stop. All right. I'll get the reality check in a moment. Olaf, the Russian metalhead, says, Hank Brennan, all hat, no cattle. $2 super chat, $2. All right. So getting back to this comment here. Thank you all for the super chats. Reality check said, can you tell us your thoughts? Okay. So I thought that, so my personal opinion about this whole trial is I do think that Hank Brennan is a significantly better prosecutor. Mark Bettero agrees. I brought that up the last time I was on the Young Jerks. He agrees. He's annoying in a way where he's very he's analytical. He's very like attack everything, press every issue, dot every I, cross every T. It's very like annoying from that point where it's almost like he knows how to poke with the stick. Now, I actually thought Jen, based on her own merit, was better for herself and the prosecution than she had been last year. if that makes sense to everybody. I felt that pound for pound, if I'm the Commonwealth or if I'm anti-Karen Reed, that she presented herself better this year than last year because she was more subdued. Many people think she was on under the influence of drugs or whatever. And I don't mean like drugs, but I mean like maybe stimulants, anti whatever, depressants perhaps. I don't know. But I thought that she was better for I think the Commonwealth got a better performance out of her this year than last year because she did not get caught up in as many arguments and battling it out with Jackson as much as she had the year before. Right. She was right. Someone could argue she was much more rehearsed. I would say she was better prepared. And I think probably when they prepared her for this, they probably said, we want you to calm down. We don't want you to get into it with Jackson as much as you did last time around. And I think they wanted her to be more out of sight, more out of mind in comparison to being more memorable last year, where she was mostly memorable for getting into it with Jackson as much as she had. So I think Brennan was like, we're going to have you bring it down. Don't get into it as much. And we're going to get you in early in the trial in hopes of making you less memorable once jury deliberation comes up. I think that was the prosecution's plan. I think that was their plan, was to try to get her in there early, make her less memorable based on how she conducted herself, and then pray that the jury would bear less weight on her testimony this year than they had last time. Now, to reality check's point, which is my next point, and also to John's point, which is my next point. Regardless of all of that, when it came time to the analytics of it all, Alan Jackson was able to successfully cross-examine her and get the answers out of her that were still notable. And I would say if I was a juror, that would stand out to me enough to ask questions, because ultimately Alan Jackson once again established her involvement. And by involvement, I'm only meaning that her, Carrie, and Karen all being in the vehicle and responding to the crime scene. They established her as someone that was a key witness. Alan Jackson then shed light onto her to cast doubt as to why she did certain things and didn't do other things. And I thought that the defense did a great job of doing that. Why didn't you go into the house? Why didn't you knock on the door? And like I've argued, compromisingly, if you yourself cannot knock on the door of that homeowner, who else among you, Carrie or Karen, could have been maybe delegated to go to that door and knock on that door? And I thought that was a very nice perspective from Alan Jackson to present in court to make a case. And thank you to Brian LTL as well for forwarding the audience. Thank you to the LTL raid as well. To make a case that, what did she not do? What should she have done? And beyond that, right? It's not like the argument is you're going to knock on a door of any house where anyone could live there. It could be old man Winter that lives there. It could be your 88-year-old neighbor with hearing aids. It could be the local house that's filled with 10, 20-year-olds that all live in the same house together that share expenses. But this particular house, Alan Jackson establishes that they know the homeowner. The homeowner is indeed family. Her sister lives inside that house, right? And the argument that Alan Jackson made before that jury, I thought was critical, was why not go, even though you called the police, why not go onto that house? Why go to that house? Why not go to that door and knock on it, wake them up, say, hey, you're a first responder. And the way Alan Jackson kind of broke that down was, are you trained in first aid, resuscitation, all that stuff? No. And so you got a cop that lives right in that house. Why not get out here right now? There's a Boston police officer. It's going to be dying on the front lawn. I thought that was a great argument that Alan Jackson made because it creates reasonable doubt that Karen did it. It creates doubt that the Commonwealth's narrative is not accurate. It creates a sense that this cover up is accurate because of that lack of activity. And the other thing he did that I thought was really good, Alan Jackson, was he brought up the fact that she later just opens up the door to her testimony, walks right in, enters their bedroom, and alerts them to what's going on later in the morning. And then he starts to talk about the dog. Was this dog really quiet? Was the dog gone? Doggone it. There's a lot of things there that are brought up that raise a lot of questions. And I thought that, he did a great job, Alan Jackson, getting that out of her. Like I said, even though pound for pound, Jen did better for the Commonwealth this year than last year, nonetheless, like everyone kind of immediately commented on, Alan Jackson got the cross-examination to go the way he wanted to and was very successful in doing that. And I thought for me, that was probably the most memorable moment of the cross-examination, definitely. What's going on, Lauren? Hope you're doing well. Scott McGinnis, hope you're doing well as well. But yeah, that's basically the way I see this whole thing right now. 227 Google search. I mean, you get Jennifer Coffendaffer. I read her tweet, from earlier. I read it this evening, earlier today. Hailing Jessica Hyde as this amazing witness, proving that a browser window was open at 227. That's just so inaccurate. If you were to search Boston Celtics ruined our lives again by losing to the Knicks again in the same fashion, 2 games in a row, and you open your browser at 8 o'clock, but you Google searched it now, you would be psychic because you would have already known the Celtics lost twice in a row before the game ever ended, of course, but you would also, your Google search would not show until 10:02. You know what I mean? It's just the way it's going to work. So if that browser, you can't make the argument. You cannot make the argument. Oh, the browser was open at 2:27. Then the Google search took place at 6 something. And that was the horse long to die in the cold. No. That does not work that way. You cannot open up a browser. And, you could open up a browser on your computer right now. And in 2 hours, or on your phone, iPhone, open it up right now. And then in 2 hours or 4 hours at 2:27 a.m. tomorrow morning, if you wanted to. Okay. And Google search something. The Celtics, Jessica Hyde had a recommendation today. It starts with P and rhymes with corn, that you might search. But can't believe she said that in court. Yeah. It doesn't matter when you open up your browser. Your browser could be open. Yeah, someone goes, they've had a browser and AOL open since 1995, William Poole says here. I mean, your browser could be open since 1995, and you Google search now. It's going to register the time that the search was made. It's not going to measure when then I'd ask the next question. Well, every single time, if to debunk this theory from Jessica Hyde, if I may, this means that every single time somebody opens up a browser, if you took a few minutes to actually get to Google and search for something, you could search for pizza, you could search for hamburgers, you could search for chicken sandwiches, you could search for waffles, you could search for pancakes, you could search for any food I would personally search for chicken wings, if I'm being honest. I was a little taken back she didn't mention chicken wings, if I may. But you can open up your browser, at 10:02, and I could Google search right now 3 minutes later. That is a 10:05 Google search if I search for pancakes. Okay. It's at 10:05. If the browser was open at 10:02 and I search for it at 10:05, it's come on. It's come on. It's going to be at the time that the search was made, because you're telling me that every single search that Cellbrite would be able to scrub would only report the time in which the browser was open. So if every person had the browser open for a couple of minutes, they wouldn't count the searches till after, when the time, 5-10 minutes later. That does not make any sense. And the kicker is here is that the 227 timestamp legitimately reads Haas long to die in cold. And that's the argument. They just can't argue around it. They cannot. They cannot. Let's take a look. When Karen and Aiden are free, can we please talk about the Larry Bird era? Let's talk about the Larry Bird era briefly right now. Larry Bird's one of my favorite. Actually, Larry Bird's my favorite player of all time. Then probably Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce. Probably my top 3 favorite players of all time. Michael Jordan. Probably Shaq. I like Shaq a lot, even though I played for the Lakers. I like Shaq a lot when I was a kid. Like Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill. But Larry Bird was the man. He was great. It's just too bad he hurt his back. He was one of the best shooters of all time. Great passer. It's just too bad he hurt that back and had to retire in 92. It would have been nice if he was around in the late 90s. He could have played 5 more years than he did. He could have still been around when I was a little bit older. What sucks for me is I was so young when they won those championships. I was a little kid. I mean, I wasn't even born for one of them that Bird won, and but he was awesome. And for me, all the footage I watched of him was, I used to watch him all the time in the late 80s, early 90s when I was really little. I used to watch the Celtics every game I could when I was a young kid. Parrish, Bird, and McHale were kind of older. Tragic era. Bird, McHale, both got those injuries. Reggie Lewis died, which really hurt me bad when I was a kid. Then Len Bias died. I didn't even remember Len Bias. I was too young when they drafted him. But, they could have had a nice little dynasty going into the 90s there with Len Bias and Reggie Lewis as the top 2 stars. Then Bird, Parrish, and McHale as elder statesmen. It could have really made a nice run. Good to see Cherry in the house as well. Cherry, hope you've been well. It's been a while. Hopefully you can take my words out of context that I say on this show and turn them into dirty terms like you always do. Most people think Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time. I'd say so. No question about it. Larry Bird would not be the man without Dennis Johnson, who fed Bird the ball like it's his child. Well, agree and disagree, because Larry Bird won a title without Dennis Johnson in 1981 when Nate Tiny Archibald was the point guard. But those 86 Celtics were something else. So, I mean, it's a team game at the end of the day. Jason Grant's in the house. What's going on, Jason? You are the man. Hope you're doing well. Jason is taking on the buffer zone. He is one of many that's actually going to Boston. Has been in Boston at least once with Mark Randazza, the attorney, and are fighting this buffer zone. And that has been, an ongoing fight for over, it's a new fight for this year, but it's been, well, not a new fight. It's a recurring fight for this, or a renewed fight for this year is maybe a better term than it was last year. That is for sure. It's too bad. It's too bad what went down. And, I see Boston Brandy's here. I mean, Boston Brandy said peekaboo in the buffer zone. Peekaboo. She says Larry Bird's a legend. Boston Brandy legitimately posted on her page on X a video saying peekaboo, which was well received by the lead prosecutor. He thought nothing of it. But then this cop's like, dun, 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 stairs are down. Oh, we need to write her out, need to get her in trouble. That's the problem with the buffer zone. That's why people like Jason are fighting this thing, because most of us feel we should be able to hang out outside the courthouse. I mean, hey, I'll even say this. If the buffer, first of all, I don't want a buffer zone, right? Like everybody, I don't want a buffer zone. But if that buffer zone was simply just the sidewalk right around the courthouse, and that was the buffer zone, like if they changed it to that, right? If they said, okay, we'll minimize it to just the sidewalk around the courthouse and everybody's going to stay across the street, we have that sidewalk going down by the church, I'd pretty much be in agreement to accept that. If they were able to compromise, meet us halfway, say, okay, we'll rescind the thing. But, just rescind it back quite a few feet. at least so we can have that sidewalk next to that little grassy patch next to the church, which would be nice because it was nice to have at least that. Like, as bad as the buffer zone was last year, we had a nice workaround. I mean, we were able to kind of somehow work around it in comfort and had the tent set up. It was comfortable. It was. Now that it's pushed so far back, it's just not comfortable anymore. But like I said, if they could push that thing to just a sidewalk around the courthouse at the very least, even though we'd still argue that as unconstitutional, to me, that would be at least an acceptable compromise at the very least. But obviously, we want the buffer zone completely gone. Yeah. If you're claustrophobic, yeah, I'd imagine that's going to be tough. That's for sure. And it's cramped. It's on the sidewalk up against the fence. There's really not much room back there. The trolls are trying to have a field day like, oh, we're not showing up. But I think a lot of folks are just like, well, if it's not going to be comfortable, I'm not going to go. But hopefully you can get out there. Tomorrow morning at 7:30, they're going to do a prayer. And then there's going to be a pretty big group meeting near the post office around 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I will not be there. I don't know when I'm going to be able to go. I don't know when. I'm going to see if I can find some time here soon. Maybe at least make at least an appearance. We shall see, but we'll see what happens. But it's like I said, this buffer zone. I mean, like that was my projection. Prediction. She's going to move that buffer zone back compared to last year. It's going to be an issue, and it is. It's a bigger issue because, like I said, at the very least, if the buffer zone was the same size as last year, that would have been like to a degree acceptable. But I'd imagine that we'd still want to fight it. And lawyer up with Mark Randazza, and get out there and take it on because it's worth fighting for. It is. It's worth fighting for. I want to talk about a cross-examination I caught this evening, and that was Connor Keefe. He's a Massachusetts State police officer. He was mentored by Michael Proctor, former trooper Michael Proctor. I just like the way David Yannetti conducted this cross-examination today. I like the fact that he tried to associate Connor Keefe with Michael Proctor as much as possible. You're a part of the same unit. He was your mentor. He's a disgraced ex-Massachusetts State police officer. I thought that was really well done. I thought that was exceptionally well done by David Yannetti. And that's exactly what you need to do, is just basically associate people with Michael Proctor as much as possible. You're in the same unit as him, right? He's disgraced, right? He can't be trusted, right? I think that's just the way to do it. Now, this has been brought up too. FM just brought it up. How about the shoe sole black and the shoe today sole today was white? Exactly. So this was also, I believe it was the Glare that originally pointed this out on his show last year. He mentioned the fact that this is an issue that needs to be pointed out, is that they're holding the shoe. He's modeling off the shoe like it's a bottle of wine today. Would you like this bottle of wine? He's holding the shoe like this is no ordinary shoe. It's a Michael Jordan shoe. But they're showing the shoe off in court, but there's differences. And at the sole of the shoe is very clearly, and here's the thing. The images that people that are Karen Read supporters are using online is footage that was presented either from the crime scene or footage that's presented from court, where someone's actually standing in court, they're showing you the shoe, and the soles of the shoe are different. And I hope that the defense points that out. I don't know if they did. I might have missed it, but it's, it's interesting. Laferio, Turning Gallagher says also that Proctor was the lead investigator. It was his case. That's a great point. Great point made right there. That's exactly right. If you're going to discredit people through Proctor, you may as well, make the point that he's the lead investigator in this whole thing and definitely create enough doubt. I think that the defense has done a marvelous job. I think we're all in agreement of that. And I also think that, like I said, I believe that Hank Brennan's a superior prosecutor to Adam Lally. I think that Hank Brennan's doing as much as you possibly could, considering they have no case against Karen, if that makes sense. And I think he's doing everything he can to try to make something out of nothing, but I think he's doing a better job of doing it than Adam Lally ever did. Now, that said, the defense is even more sharper than they were a year ago. They're even more sharper. They're even more on the ball than they were. They got that choke going again this year. And I also felt that when you add another attorney like Robert Alessi, like when Robert Alessi crossed Jessica Hyde, as we saw, look at all the details he was bringing up, how thorough he was, how on top of the details he was. The big problem with cross-examining all these witnesses is you have so many witnesses that are very, there's a lot of subject matter there. When you cross-examine Jennifer McCabe, there's a lot to talk about. Michael Proctor or Jessica Hyde or Brian Out, whomever, there's a lot to cross-examine these people on. And not only that, there's a lot of details. There's a lot of times. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of everything. And, when you're an attorney, this is not a one-man job. And this, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're the greatest attorney on the planet right now or the greatest attorney of all time. No one attorney can effectively do the most thorough job in the world by themselves because there's just too much data. There's too much to study. There's too much to prepare for. And you just can't possibly mentally, as a one individual, do this by yourself. Now, with that said, with even 3 individuals, 4 is better than 3, and 5 would have been better than 4. And I think you saw today with Robert Alessi that how thorough he was, because he had all that time to focus on the people that he's actually going to cross-examine and really study up and really get the details ready to go and really do a great job. And I think that the cross-examination this year was more thorough because, again, David Unetti and Alan Jackson and Eliza Little don't have to split themselves up as much among the witnesses. They can now divide it in 4s as opposed to 3rds. And this allows Robert Alessi the time to really hone in on Jessica Hyde, who, like I said, not a reputable witness. I don't think she's anyone of any reputation at all. I think she's really ineligible to be an expert witness on this matter. I don't really think that what I've seen, she has any significant qualifications, but I still think that the prosecution can present her in a way that is reputable. That might sound laughable to free Karen Reed folks like ourselves, but I do think for a jury, my big concern is that the jury is not always as knowledgeable and as wise to everything as we are. They don't really know much about this case. They're learning this case, and it could be easy to throw them off with a witness such as Jessica Hyde, as much as she was difficult to understand. So it's that much important that someone like Robert Alessi just goes right in there on cross-examination and bing, bang, boom, all the way down, beats her on every single detail, because you need to discredit that person. You need to get them on their heels, defensive, and debunk everything they say, because you don't want a witness that really, in my opinion, and most of our opinions, doesn't really have much credibility, and them coming off in any way, shape, or form, hopefully not, as credible for those jurors. So you need to have a defense that's like they did last year, but I thought it was even more thorough this year because Leslie had the time to hone in on her more with his cross, that you have time to now really, discredit her even more than maybe you could have a year ago, which is great. And I thought preliminarily, prior to her taking on the stand, I loved the way Robert Alessi heavily questioned Jessica Hyde before the judge and really pushed that matter. I thought that was really, really huge. And I thought that was good stuff. So I'm just going to catch up on the comments. Someone said they didn't point out the shoe. It said, everyone go hit that like and subscribe. Maz is back. Thank you, Jay Coop. All right. Yeah, Lally's a low ball, the hurdle. I also think that he didn't have, I don't think, I always called him Lally 9 to 5 because I always felt like he was a 9 to 5er, meaning he just punches his clock. He's a prosecutor by day. He watches TV and drinks beer at night and then gets up the next day like it's his job. He just grabs his suitcase and just walks into work. With Hank Brennan, if Hank Brennan was sitting around right now working for tomorrow, I'd believe it. Adam Lally, I would not believe it. And I think that's the difference. I think that's why he's a better prosecutor. And yes, he did put her in her place today. I agree with that. He did. He definitely did. Yes, Alessi is is amazing and very skilled, 100%. He knows the law exactly. And he was able to get specific responses out of her to specific questions. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. Specifically, what did you, he's very, very down to the detail. And I think in this particular kind of case, having someone like Robert Alessi, who's very, very detailed, is very, very important too, because you need someone to be that meticulous with all that. I'm just looking for more comments here. Yeah, he definitely shredded testimony. Bev can goaltend and thwart the defense by not declaring Proctor a hostile witness that the defense called. Then the defense is handcuffed and how they go after Proctor. I think I missed the super chat now. I didn't realize it. Yes, I did. Jay Coop, so glad you're back. You are the real deal. Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I'm good to be back. Like I said, I never thought I was going to be back. I thought I was done. Just thought I was done. I just kind of, I don't know, a lot of different things came up in life, and I was like, I don't know, but something inside me kind of turned back on after a while. I was fixing my headset here. Something inside me kind of turned back on after a while. I was like, okay, time to get back in it. I'm going to be a little bit more limited with my shows this time around, though. I don't expect to do many regular shows as much as I did last time. We'll just do a few shows here and there, and just enough to kind of keep up an appearance here and there, and just maybe get on, comment, and maybe making a brief appearance on a few shows and stuff like that. But I don't want to. I'll tell you one thing. It was very exhausting. And I'm not complaining, but it was very exhausting to work all day, 5 days a week, and then do a show for 2.5 hours, whether it was my own show or LTL or Young Jerks, any show I was on, day after day after day. And then even on the weekends, it was brutal to do. And actually, when the first trial ended, I said, I don't know if I can do this again next year. Even this year coming up, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this again. So I'm like, I'll just limit my appearances. Yeah, what's going on, Mark Cunningham? Good to see you, man. Yeah, Celtics. Well, their shooting is fraudulent. They actually played a good enough game to win 2 nights in a row, but they whatever. So I actually, believe it or not, I don't find the judge as troublesome in my mind as she was last year. I don't know if she needed to help out Adam Lally more than she needed to help out Hank Brennan. I don't know if that's the case, but I don't feel like, at least up to this point, she's been as much of a, oh my God, she's getting under my skin as much. I feel like I'm kind of, it feels watered down. To me, like I said, maybe I've just gotten more used to her, over the past year as well. That could be what it is too. That could be what it is too. But I don't feel so negative towards the judge this time around as I did last year. And like I said, I think that probably she was helping out, at least so it appeared, Adam Lally a lot more last year. Maybe because he's not as much of a strong prosecutor as Hank Brennan. Hey, Nurse Kim's in the house. She says, oh, Mazza, so happy to see you. I totally understand the feeling of exhaustion working full-time, family life, and creating content. It's really hard to find the balance. Oh, that's for sure. Oh, it really is. It's a lot. It really is. And the worst thing that can happen is your energy, your energy. I remember sometimes before a 3M show, I'd actually take a nap for an hour. But the thing is, too, this year, I'm actually walking a lot more this year. And last year, I actually had an exercise goal that got put right on the back burner last spring. And I ended up catching up with my weight loss later in the year. This year, like, I just am hell bent on not losing that time to exercise. I really just want to get out and exercise. And that's really what I'm afraid to lose, because the problem with this living in New England, spring through fall is like your key time. But last year, April through June, trial, show after show after show was go last year. And I lost a lot of exercise, sitting down all day long. And I'm like, boy, I need to get up and get moving. So this year I'm trying to just, get moving a lot more, get out there. And I hit over 10,000 steps a few times in the past couple of days as well. Not Tuesday, and not today, but over the weekend, Friday and Saturday I hit over 10,000. Then Sunday and the past couple of days, I haven't been feeling too good. So Monday and Tuesday, I felt like hell, quite honestly. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. He says, I'm so proud of you, pal. You look great in the direct line of our mental health and physical health. So that's good. Perfect. Now, thank you so much. You finally caught me alive. I don't think anybody's caught me alive in the past 2 months. It's the first time I've been live, but maybe you've been on other shows. But thank you, James. You're the best. Thank you so much. All right. Well, let's talk about a few other things here. The meteorologist yesterday, Robert Gilman, that was interesting. He just kind of got up there and talked about the weather. And that was about it. They wanted to actually introduce a meteorologist out there to talk about significant weather. It was like, I just thought, like, what's the point? I mean, it snowed. Did the weather really have anything to do besides the coldness of the air? Am I planning on? Thank you, LaFaria. Thank you. Are you planning on going back and sitting in the courtroom? If I am asked to go to the courtroom as a guest, I'll do it. That's what happened last year. I didn't get invited till later in the trial last year, around June, so I have no clue when that calls. I don't know if it will come. I don't know. It depends. I'm sure it's tight. It's a tight courtroom. There's only so many seats. I'm sure there's more than enough people that they have to invite as well. And if like I said, if I don't get invited, that's not gonna, I'm not gonna be upset. I'm sure that there's other people that didn't get a chance to sit in the courtroom last year that might have an opportunity over me. So if I only have that one opportunity last year, that's perfectly fine. I'm fine with that. That's no bother. I'm not, I'd like, I mean, I'm not really like, not really thinking about it. Like I said, if I'm asked, I'll go. If not, no worries. I'm sure many other people could be invited and have an opportunity to sit in there and take in the courtroom. I was happy to have the one opportunity last year. That was very nice, just to kind of get in there, see the environment, see the jury, and their reactions was huge. That was definitely a big part of it for me last year as well. I wouldn't mind actually, honestly, I wouldn't mind getting to go in there and just see the atmosphere in there again one time. But like I said, if they don't have the opportunity, those who are in charge of inviting have the opportunity to invite me, that's not a problem at all. I'm not going to be bothered by that. Like I said, it's I got plenty of days to work here, a lot of business at work to take care of, and it will save me a save me a day off from work, a vacation day if I'm not. But if I am, yeah, sure, why not? I'll take a day and head in there and take on the whole scene. Why not? That's for sure. All right, let's see. Heather Maxon. A lot of people had some interesting things to say about her, that she kind of established that John was in the house through her testimony, which was kind of counter. Um, it was kind of counter to everything else that was said, which was huge. Nurse Kim just says, "Oh, it will come, as I went to court on Monday. It was my first time. I didn't go first trial. All the boys got invites." That's funny. That's true. Yeah, all the boys got invites last time. That's funny as heck. Um, Getting back to Jen McCabe, I'm just looking through my notes here. Kind of a catch up show for me as well, because I haven't done a show in 2 months. Obviously, I still find it interesting. I talked about this on Brian LTL's show the other day, that Jen McCabe mentioned that the taillight was cracked to Karen Reed. Cracked. And we had talked about that in LTL studio this weekend. Bert Happens was there. Lauren DC was there. I keep scratching my nose like Bruce Lee. But that was a notable comment. Cracked. Like think about it. What would you, if you dropped your phone and you picked up your phone and you looked at the damage, like just say your cell phone, your iPhone or whatever you have, right? Just say you dropped it on the concrete or something, right? You picked it up. How would you define your cell phone being cracked? If your friend said, "What are you upset about?" And you said, "Well, I cracked my cell phone when my cell phone cracked when I dropped it." What would you consider to be cracked? Like, what would that mean to you? I would think like a crack on the sidewalk, like a single crack, or maybe one or two cracks off shooting off that single, right? I wouldn't consider that shattered, right? I wouldn't define, well, I dropped my phone and I shattered it. Like if I dropped my phone and I shattered it, I would say that the phone would be completely damaged, that maybe parts of the physical phone itself, not involving the screen, were damaged. I'd call that shattered, right? There's a difference between shattered and cracked, right? So she says it was cracked. And then, Alan Jackson on cross examination brings this up. And she keeps always saying, I did say crack, but with missing pieces. It's kind of like I asked for whipped cream in my ice cream, but with a cherry on top. That's kind of the analogy you could use there. I got ice cream with whipped cream, but with a cherry on. Yes, but with a cherry on top. That's kind of what she's saying there. I said cracked, but with missing pieces. Well, if I drop my phone and crack it, I wouldn't say cracked unless it was cracked. If it had missing pieces, I'd probably just say shattered. So that to me is a notable comment, because if the taillight is only cracked, then that leads us ahead in the trial to Sallyport, where the taillight is shattered, with a crime scene that had more missing taillight recovered from it after the crime scene was closed than while the crime scene was under investigation, which is a very, very notable thing, which is very, very notable, which stands out quite a bit. That's really something else. That's just, to me, such a big statement. Because I mean, like I said, shattered, cracked. Come on, two different things. But cracked is a very, very definitive thing. When you look at her backing out of John's driveway and backing into the vehicle, I can see a crack forming in the taillight there, right? But not when she drives off and there's all these missing pieces. I mean, missing pieces. I mean, maybe she could have used the term at least destroyed, if it was missing pieces, but I would not say cracked unless, when I hear the word cracked, to me, that sounds like it's intact. It's intact, but it's cracked. That's how I would define the word cracked, as intact. But shattered would be a totally different thing altogether. So to me, that really leads to the shattered taillight theory being debunked as something going on in Sallyport. Solo cups, Stop and Shop bags, all that good stuff. What happened inside of Sallyport? What happened? What went down and why? And it's just wild. It really is. You do not refer to a friend as a man in the snow. Or one of her testimonies was, John O'Keefe is a good friend of mine. I was concerned about a friend. But then she refers to him as a man in the snow. I believe that's how it's quoted here. If I'm misquoting, maybe I'm misquoting. But a man in the snow. I wouldn't refer to, if your dad or family member or significant other or sibling or friend or neighbor was out on the front lawn. My neighbor's an ex-cop. I don't even, what am I going to say? There's a man in the snow. There's a man in the yard. If you actually know them, oh my goodness, John O'Keefe's on the snow front lawn. Even if you don't call him a Boston police officer, fine. But at the very least, maybe say his name. And, these are the things that I try to always look at everything from both perspectives. And if I look at it from her perspective, like why say a man in the snow if you actually know who it is? If you know who it is, then just say so. But when you say man in the snow and you know who it is and you claim that person's a friend, if I'm being someone that's of the mind that I believe this is a frame and a cover up, I'm going to look at things like that and I'm going to say, well, when I give you my theory, or I tell you why I think this is a frame job or why I think this is a cover up, these are reasons that I would give to suggest that I think that this is a frame job or a cover up. You know what I mean? Because like I said, a lot of times the trolls think like, well, you guys just think she's innocent and that's it. Well, like I said, when I was very new to all this, I actually, like I said, I looked at it from both ways. I'm like, let's just look through this all. But if I'm keeping score And I'm constructively looking at anybody that's a McAlbert or whomever's testimony. And I'm just going to say, well, I'm going to be fair and impartial and not biased. I'm going to be objective, right? And I'm going to say, well, you're saying that he's your friend. You're saying that you know him. You know that he's a cop, but then you refer to him as a man in the snow. Man in the snow stands right out to me. If my dad or mother or siblings or grandfather or cousins or uncles or aunts or neighbors or whomever are on the front lawn of my property or the front line of their property or the front line of somebody else's property, I'm not going to refer to them as a man or woman on the yard or in the snow. I might say something like, my friend is in the snow. My brother's in the snow. His name is Carl Miller. I'm not going to say a man in the snow like I'm trying to pretend, because it comes off, constructively speaking here, it comes off like you're trying to distance yourself a little bit. That's just the theory that I have. That's just, like I said, if I'm trying, like I said, if you're going to tell me that I'm wrong or we're wrong about Karen Reed being innocent and that she is truly guilty and that we are truly wrong about believing that you or anybody else is not telling the truth, and you would wish to convince me that I am wrong or I am incorrect or I am inaccurate, I just don't understand why someone would say a man in the snow, as opposed to knowing who that person is and saying, a man is in the snow. His name is John O'Keefe. He's a friend of mine. He's a Boston police officer. He's been out there for I'd probably do something like that. I'd probably be a little bit more specific than vague. Then there comes down to questions about the address that was given. Was it 32 Fairview instead of 34 Fairview? Again, the distancing. These are things that make me, people say you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, this isn't really a conspiracy. It's a cover-up. It's a frame shop. It's how we look at this, right? That's our theory. That's our belief system. It's just, like I said, it's just, to me, it seems purposely vague, and all that. Did a super chat here. Let's see. Reality check. You being a techie, what is your take on the expert testimony? Is that referring to Jessica Hyde? If so, I just don't think, like I said, I just don't think that, like I said, a timestamp is a timestamp. If you search something on Google at a certain time, it doesn't matter how long your browser's been open. You've searched for what you've searched for at the time that you've searched for it. I've never heard in my life of anybody searching something on Google that their browser was open an hour or two before, or whatever, 20 minutes before, whatever you want to make it. And when they search for it, a Google search at a prior time, it's gonna run a timestamp at 10:38 p.m. and then also 10:02 p.m. because the browser was open at 10:02. That's what's happening here, is that the browser was open at 2:27, right? The browser's open at 2:27. Now, if it was, fine. But maybe that log might say something if it had the ability to say something. Safari browser opened at 10:02 p.m. on May 7th, 2025. Google search took place at 10:39 on May 7th, 2025. Okay. But that's not what happened here. This 227 logs Haas logging the die-in code. It actually logs the search. It does not say browser open 2:27 a.m. It doesn't say that. It literally logs it. It literally logs it. If you search waffles and pancakes, okay, at 2:27 a.m., or if you open up your browser at 2:27 a.m. and you Google it at 6:30 something a.m., whatever it was, it's not going to log it both times. It's not going to log it at 2:27 and at 6:30ish. It's only going to log it when the search was actually made. So if it's only searched at 6 something in the morning or 5 something in the morning, then it's only going to be there. If there's no Google search at 2:27 a.m., it should not be logged on that data. That does not make any sense. I'm sorry. I have never heard of that in my life. And I have taken computer courses. I'm in my life, I have taken technological courses. All right. I'm not a Cellbrite expert. I'm not an Apple expert. But I will tell you, I cannot understand for the life of me how anybody could justify saying that a browser was open at 2:27 a.m., that no search took place, and it was an error where the Google search actually took place at 6 something in the morning. And then how long to die in the cold. It's like, if you look at the Google search. I mean, look at the Google search itself, right? I'm just gonna type this phrase here. Let's just walk through this here. All right. How long to die in the cold? Now I want you to look at. Now I'm gonna search for this. I'm gonna do another search right here. Ready? All right. I want you to look at this next. We're gonna go to English class right now. Okay. We're gonna go to English class, and we're gonna look at sentence structure here. Okay. Now I want you to read this. Okay. How long to hard boil eggs? Okay. Everybody just read that for a second. Okay. How long to die in cold? How long to hard boil eggs? Now, let's ask the question to the chat. If I am Googling how long to hard boil eggs, have I hard boiled eggs yet? Please answer that question in the comments. If I am Googling how long to hard boil eggs, have I hard boiled eggs yet? Let's wait for some answers here. Okay, there's a no. No, no, no's. Okay, so a ton of no's, right? So how long to hard boil eggs? The reason why I'm Googling how long to hard boil eggs, I understand. I'm gonna allow R23H's point, but I take your alternative theory and acknowledge it. But in most scenarios, they're probably not hard boiling eggs. So great point. Right? How long to hard boil eggs, right? So I'm doing this search because I'm about to hard boil my eggs, right? And I want to know how long I should hard boil these eggs because I have not hard boiled them yet. Correct? Right. So if I search for how long to die in cold, would I also be Googling how long to die in cold because someone has not yet died in the cold? And I'm wondering how long it's going to take someone who is presently outside in the cold to die in the cold. Does that make, let me ask you, constructively, does that make sense? Is the sentence structure on this search making that point here, that how long to die in the cold is roughly being made because I'm trying to determine how long like if I was, you know what I mean? Does it make sense? Does it make sense? Now if I searched how long should I have hard boiled eggs for, right? How long should I have hard boiled eggs for? You would all agree with me that I probably already hard boiled the eggs, and I probably either really did a poor job of hard boiling them, or I didn't, hard boil them to my liking. Maybe the shell didn't peel off properly, or the egg yolk wasn't cooked enough. It just didn't work out for me, right? But now this is a past tense search. How long should I have hard boiled eggs for, right? Is different than how long to hard boil eggs. I think we're all in agreement on this, right? So if I search how long to die in the cold, that means that probably I'm wondering how long is it going to take to die in the cold for somebody that's out there. So maybe a more reasonable search would have been how long to die in cold after exposure for several hours, right? Now, this might mean, now if this Google search, now maybe if the Google search like this took place, right? How long to die in cold after exposure for several hours? Maybe something like that makes you think, well, if this Google search took place at 6 something, 2:27 a.m. Google search never happened. If this kind of Google search took place, you might say, well, he just got taken to the hospital. Is he going to die? He's been out here for a couple hours. How many hours has he been out there? We're not really sure. How long to die in cold after exposure for several hours? You're trying to figure out something post tense, right? Or past, not maybe past tense. Let's say he's already been taken off in the ambulance, all that. Maybe that's a great argument. Is that you're looking at something like this and you're saying to yourself, someone was just outside for several hours. How long does it take him to die in the cold after he's been out there for a few hours? How long to die in cold? I mean, there could be an argument made. There could be an argument made that how long to die in the cold is reasonable. It could be a reasonable search. How long to die in cold? If that was legitimately made at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, whenever, and there's no search at 2:27, well, there could be an argument made there. Well, you searched at 6, you were concerned. You just knew he was out there for a while. You want to know how long it took to die in the cold. You were concerned. But I would say that how long to die in cold is similar to how long to hard boil eggs. To me, it seems like it's an active situation, it's something that's going to happen. How long does it take? If we put the body outside, how long would it take for him to die in the cold? That's kind of how I look at this, right? I didn't put long in that term, did I? Okay. But like I said, maybe some kind of alternative would it be to if a body, maybe if someone is outside, if someone is laying in the cold for a few hours, could they die? Maybe something like that is a more innocent search, right? If someone is laying, I keep having typos here, but I'm not the only one, right? If someone is laying in the cold for a few hours, could they die? Is John going to die on his way to the hospital? If he's laying in the cold, maybe something like that. When I say how long to die in the cold, it's like how long to hard-boiled eggs. If a body's outside, well, how long to die in the cold? It's just those are things we look at and we say, what is analytically this Google search being made for? How long to cook chicken? How long to hard boil an egg? How long can someone survive in the cold? To me, it just seems like it just the tense, the way it's worded just makes it seem like it's in a present tense. And when you have a 2:27 a.m. Google search that is believed to have been done, and this Jessica Hyde can deny it all she wants about the window, but like I said, if I'm going to hard boil an egg, I'm going to search how long to hard boil an egg. Bottom line. But it's just, it says how long to die. It doesn't say, will someone survive after being in the cold? Could someone die? It doesn't even say, could someone die in the cold after a certain amount? It says how long to die in the cold. It's like if you're going to, that again, it gets back to the verbiage of it all. It gets back to the way it's written. How long to die in the cold? It doesn't say, could someone die if they're in the cold? Literally, how long to die in the cold is how it's written. How long to hard boiled eggs? Because you're going to hard boil eggs. The idea is that the eggs are going to be hard boiled, right? How long to hard boil eggs, right? The egg is the subject, but the action is hard boiled. You're looking to hard boil the eggs, right? How long to die? Die is the action in there. How long to die in the cold? The human being, the subject. How long to die? Hard boiled, die. Those are the words. Those are the key words in both of those potential searches. That's what stands out. It doesn't say, I'm going to throw someone on the lawn. How long do they die? How long does it take? Reasonably. That's how I interpret that. That's how I read that. It doesn't say an alternative like, if someone's out in the cold too long, can they die? Is it possible someone could, right. How long can someone survive being exposed to the cold? Right. These are words where see how long can someone survive? Survive is the key word, right? As opposed to how long to die. Survive. See how that one word changes the whole thing around, where it makes it look less suspicious. Can someone survive after being in the cold for 4 or 5 hours? It's like if Karen Reed or somebody Googled how long to die after hitting someone in reverse with your vehicle. Think about that for a second, right? As opposed to, can someone die after getting hit in reverse with the vehicle? It's how it's worded. How long to die? That action word die is what stands out to me. I mean, it's like I said, if you're gonna hard boil eggs, how long to hard boiled eggs? You want a time frame. You want a time frame to know how long it's going to take those eggs to become hard boiled. If you're Googling how long to die in the cold, your concern is how long does it take someone to die in the cold? And it could be, I mean, like I said, it could be looked at the other way as well. It could be looked at as out of concern, but like I said, it just seems like to me that search has a lot of motive to it to me in terms of, like I said, it just seems to me a very action-based search. It doesn't seem like, can someone survive? Is it possible someone could die in the cold after a certain amount of time? Like, I'd look for maybe Google searches like that. Like I said, if that Google search had only taken place at 6:30 and nothing came up at 2:27, there'd really be nothing to think of it. It would just be like, well, how long to die in the cold? He's been taken away in an ambulance. Or just Google that because I want to make sure he survives, or I'm concerned. But how long to die? It just seems very much like I'm looking at hard boiled eggs here. That's the only analogy I can use. But I think that how long to die in cold could be argued as an innocent search out of concern. But to me, it just seems like, if I say how long to paint a door, an 8 by 8-foot door or something, I'm looking to paint a door. I'm looking to know how long it takes for that door to be painted. I'm looking to know how long it takes to hard boil my eggs. I'm looking to know how long I should bake chicken. I'm looking to know how long I should boil lobster. I'm looking for the outcome. How long to die? How long is it going to take this person to die is how that is interpreted. I beaten this point over and over again, but yeah. But like I said, technically, that search had to have been made at 2:27 in the morning. And if that is the case, which I happen to believe, that is my theory, that is many people's theories, I disagree with Jessica Hyde, as most of us, if not all of us, do here. But I would say that I would find it hard to believe to open up a Safari browser. I mean, if I open up my Safari browser right now, and I'm going to Google my local pizza place. So my browser's open right now. It's open. It's, if I search for something in a minute, so my browser's open right now. Thank you, Angie, for the super sticker. So my browser's open right now at 10:55. I'm going to wait till 10:56. All right. I'm going to Google pancakes in about it. I'm not going to Google Celtics because I don't want my night ruined any more than it's already been ruined by their performance. All right, so we're going to wait till 10:56 here. I'm in my Safari browser. This is going to be like the longest minute ever here. I'm waiting for the clock to change on this phone. Thank you again, Angie's, for the super sticker. I appreciate it. This is like I must have started it right at the beginning of the minute. It's like I'm going to have to wait the full 60 seconds here. Come on, clock. Change. Yeah, literally, I must open up that browser like 10:55:00 on the dot. All right, come on. I want to do this search so bad. There it is. Okay, so now it's 10:56. All right, I'm going to search for pancakes. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my history. And I don't think it says the time log on this thing, unfortunately. I thought it did. Well, I was hoping it doesn't even say it here on the log. It actually just says the search itself, but it doesn't say the time associated with it. That's too bad. Well, I guess that defeats the purpose of that argument live on camera. That's okay. That happens. Well, whatever. I mean, regardless, I mean, if that search is done, it's done at the time it's done. So if it's 10:56 that I search for that, that would log. So I could search nefarious. Someone goes, looks like we have our troll here. Oh, Dave. Oh, Dave. Should we block Dave? Trash and Mike. I don't know if Dave's on our side or not. I don't know if Dave's just busting on me if he's a good. We'll give Dave the benefit of the doubt. We won't block him. He might just be, he could be a troll. He could not be. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I got to figure out how to search for the timestamp on my phone and get back there. But yeah, I couldn't search for the timestamp, so I have to figure that out. But like I said, though, the Cellbrite data proves that they could get the timestamps. So I figure if I did that search at 10:56, that if Cellbrite was to look at the data on my phone, that search would reflect 10:56 and not 10:55 based on when I opened up my browser, not based on when I opened up my browser, but when I conducted that search. So if that search is showing at 2:27 in the morning, case in point. Let's play around with them. Yeah, let's let the trolls stay. Let the troll can stay. I actually thought sometimes you ever get like made fun of by a troll sometimes, and actually what they say is pretty funny. You know, like sometimes that happens to me. I'll have a troll confront me, and I'm like, that was actually a freaking hilarious comment by that troll. I'll say to myself sometimes. I'm so it's like, kind of like that troll. Kind of like that troll a little bit. Yeah. If he was a troll, he might be on our side, but that was funny what the guy had to say there. Yeah, a lot of people don't like us. They don't like us personally, unfortunately. It happens. It's one of the things you know when you're on X or you're on YouTube, you're always going to have plenty of trolls that don't like you and are going to want to insult you and say things to you and all that stuff. What are you going to do about it? You know, I get personally attacked all the time here and there. They'll make fun of me. They tell me I look like a certain celebrity. I hear that. I don't think I look anything like this celebrity. They told me I look like Jared Fogle from Subway. How the hell do I look like Jared Fogle from Subway? I mean, these are the same. Think about it. The same people that are trying to tell you that I look like Jared Fogle from Subway are the same people trying to tell you that Karen Reed's guilty. If you use them comparing what I look like to Jared Fogle as the barometer for how these people are trying to quantify things, if they think I look like Jared Fogle, it means they don't know what the hell they're talking about, which means they can't even possibly, they couldn't even possibly tell if Karen Reed was guilty or not. like, how the heck are you going to take a guy with a complexion like mine, ethnic background like me, and tell me I look like one of the whitest guys of all time from Subway? It's just, the first time I read it, I'm like, all the trolls were doing it. It was so funny. I'm like, and I said to myself, I'm like, these guys really think I look like him, huh? Well, these are the same people trying to tell me Karen Reed's innocent. If this is their perception of life, that I look like Jared Fogle, that means these people don't know anything about what they're talking about. So Karen Reed is all the more innocent as a result of that. So that's all good. That's all right. Trolls have some fun. Sometimes trolls are just trying to have some fun for the heck of it. But that happens. It's like I said, it's par for the course. You're going to get if you're You're right. You're right. You're right. Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Not everyone's as perfect as they are. Oh my goodness. Yeah, my background. I have so many cultural backgrounds in me. It's unbelievable. I ended up discovering recently I have a couple different bloodlines in me from Europe too, which is crazy. So definitely a few different backgrounds there. I don't actually answer that kind of stuff online. Sorry, but no, I'll just say I'm like Vin Diesel or The Rock. I got a lot of culture in me there. So, but yeah, compared to Jared Fogle. Oh my goodness. But yeah, you have to be able to endure being made fun of, like you do. Like you have to endure being able to come on a show like this or online, and from time to time, like messing up, botching your word. Like you have to be able to like have the thick enough skin to deal with it. You just have to. If not, you're just not going to make it. If you're like, oh my goodness, I said something wrong, or I misstated something, and you just can't. You have to be like, yeah, I made a mistake earlier in the show. I said something wrong, or I said something that was not factual. Factual. You have to be able to kind of like let it roll. Roll off your shoulder a little bit, because you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to know everything. You're never going to have all the answers. You're never going to know all the facts. There's always going to be someone among us that knows something more about a piece of this case more than me, or anything. Like me and Mike talk about that on shows often. We're like, there's people in the chat that know sometimes more about certain areas of the case or what might have happened in the current day than we do. We might say something and someone's like, well, actually, you guys are wrong. This actually happened today and you guys don't know. But, you don't be like, well, I'm a know-it-all. You don't want to be like a thick-headed know-it-all in your show. I know everything. Nobody in the chat can possibly ever re-educate me, and I'm never wrong. Like, you just can't be like that. You got to be like, oh, I'm wrong. Oh, I'm wrong about. Oh, it looks like actually the chat's informing me 10 minutes ago I misstated something that actually is not up to date anymore. There's new information. Like, that's the way you have to be. Like, you just can't be like hard-headed about it. You have to be, you can only talk about what you know. And if you don't know everything, you have to be more than willing to accept that, there's new information that's coming out that you're not aware of. And you have to be, accepting of that. Plus, you have to look at it like a team. We're all free Karen Reed, except for maybe that one guy. That's our troll here. That's visiting with us today, participating in the chat. But hopefully this case ends with a not guilty verdict across the board, and that Karen is able to walk out of this, and Judge Cannoni can stand up and say, Miss Reed, you're free to go. And that's it. That'd be great. That'd be really great to have that and get to see her walk on in life. And yeah, visiting troll, a troll among us. But we enjoy having trolls here every now and then. But yeah, it'd be nice to see Karen Reed just walk away free of all this year and not have this continue. Not have this continue on and not have to deal with this anymore for her, and she can kind of move on to the next part of her life and continue on. So, ladies and gentlemen, hour and a half tonight. I kind of filled in for Turtle Boy perhaps tonight. It's a much smaller audience, of course, but we didn't crack 1,000, but we did have around 400 people here for most of the night, and I value every single one of you for tuning in, whether it's just one person or 400 or whatever. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight, and great show, and great to catch up. And thank you for all the super chats, super stickers, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate it. And LTL, The Glare, Glamasuz, a few other folks, Reality Check, Angie's Wave, Goodman's, Olaf, Brenda S., Jay Coop. Thank you guys all for your donations tonight. I appreciate it. And thank you so much. I appreciate it, Paul. Appreciate that very much. And Lauren DC, thank you very much. Great meeting you again or seeing you again recently. And Scott, all the best. Scott's got an early morning tomorrow morning. 8 o'clock, I think, is when everyone's doing the big gathering tomorrow. I believe it's outside the post office. 8 a.m. Tomorrow morning, I will not be able to attend. I'll be at work. But all you guys take care of yourselves. Continue to do well. Stand tall. Do your thing. Have a great day. Sleep well. God bless. Take care. Free Karen Reed. Free Turtle Boy. And everyone take care of yourself. I'm going to go hang out with my cat for a little bit and call it an evening soon. So, guys, take care of yourselves. All right. Free Karen Reed. I am Mark from MazzaMedia. Watch my own name. I am Mark from MazzaMedia. Been so long since I've done a show. I am Mark from MazzaMedia. Take 3. Please like and subscribe to my channel. And thank you guys so much. And take care. Bye-bye.